So I'm just going to kick it off. Hi, everybody. My name's Hagen. Thanks for having me on here. I'm excited to chat a little bit with y'all about style and kind of the partition between being a creative individual and business. Obviously, I'm not going to speak in absolutes. I only know what I know, so take everything that I say with a grain of salt. So first up, I will, loving your art and making money off your art are two completely separate things. And that's kind of everybody's own journey. I had my trials and tribulations and learned some stuff the hard way. And I'm sure no matter where you are in your career, you will find the same. So I'll tell you a little bit about who I am. I'm not I don't like to introduce myself. I don't want to overstay my welcome, so I'll talk a little bit about who I am and my background, but I won't be exhaustive. The main catalyst, as I was saying before, for this presentation actually was a talk I gave at a local art school in 2019, and it was a little bit of a retrospective of my style progression over the years. And I really wanted to talk about that again and look at it with fresh eyes. And then also I'm going to weave in a little bit about why boundaries between art and business matter, and then kind of open up the floor for further conversation with everybody, either in the chat or if anyone wants to come off mute and just chime in. That would be delightful, but we'll get to that at the tail end. So who am I? My name's Hagen. I usually go by the pseudonym Gloombones on the internet. It's kind of like a street art thing, Instagram moniker. A few disclaimers. I don't make money off of my art anymore. I used to. I kind of got to like small micro influencer status for a while on Instagram. And I don't think that's any benchmark for success, but I definitely learned a thing or two through it. So that's just kind of part of my journey. I spent 8-9 years in creative ventures, all the way from video games, a lot of mobile video games, mostly contracting, but I did have my own studio for a while. All the way to band posters and swag and such, to art galleries. I just feel like in the art world, there's no hard and fast rules. And loving yourself and your own art is extremely important. And again, another catalyst for this presentation is kind of showing you how I grew to love my own art. Because it was a journey for sure. So my art style progress over the years, I'm going to start back in 2010 to 2013. I think it's for the best that I did not find anything from college that wasn't hand-drawn, which is rather interesting because I was a game art major starting back in 2007 to 2011. But I think it's for the best that I didn't find any of the digital stuff. So here's some sketches that I found on my hard drive. And in looking at these, we're all our own worst critics. But I think that's important. And when you have, 15 years of illustration to look back on, I can't help but to look at how detail-oriented I was and how I didn't really focus on the overall forms and shapes. I was kind of all over the place, but with interior local shadow, I think I had some okay fundamentals starting to trend in the right direction. And as you can see, I was doing, characters and environments and a little bit of comic booking. So 2014, I'm trying to make up for the lack of 3D and the lack of colored pieces in this. I found a few older game projects that I kicked off, mostly just personal stuff, and concepting for a few companies that I was working for at the time, but mostly game jams. You can see the Open Mike Eagle poster that I did for a local venue. Looking back at this, I think I was kind of internalizing all of the fantastic teachings that I came away with from college, and kind of figuring out what I wanted to do in digital mediums. So, I was in Unity, I was exploring 3D and texturing, mostly low poly stuff, and I was also doing a little bit of cartooning. But yeah, 2015, I think I was starting to hit my stride. The one big gap in 2014 that I had there was I was working on a mobile game with a local studio, but I didn't find any images that I was comfortable sharing. But I picked up a contract in 2015 through a smaller company that my friends worked at, for Cartoon Network. And I think that's where I kind of really fell in love and really started trending towards cartoons as a medium. You can see on the left, I started doing some gouache at the same time. So I was doing more local art shows and art galleries at the same time, and still doing some personal comic booking. But you can see the Cartoon Network stuff. I start to really tighten up my forms, my shapes. Not all 100% of the work here is me. I think some of the character work was my boss. But all the backgrounds were me, and some of the UI. So in 2016, I think I started really branching out again, really trying to push my colors, my shapes, experimenting around with gesture and form. For whatever reason, 2016 was the year of skateboarding contract images that I was doing. So you can see a few of those, as well as some covers and of small publications and some shows. So you can see that I was doing a little bit more loopy stuff, trying to lean into that Adventure Time vibes a little bit, and then also at the same time really leaning into technique and shape and form, abstract shading and such. 2017, I feel like I really started to tighten things up. I think when I look back at my art journey, the high point was 2017 and onwards. And that's when I picked up Montana brand paint pens. So on the left, those are all traditional pieces. And you can see that I really was getting comfortable with that kind of matte, like shading style, and really hitting my stride with traditional mediums. And at the same time, I was doing more band-related stuff. I did some shirt designs and posters for Circa Survive, and a couple studios. Night Dive Studios was a really good friends over there. So I was a little bit more confident in my gesture and shape. I think in 2018, I was trying to adapt that medium and see what that would look like digitally a little bit more. I was trying to refine my shape and really experiment around with backgrounds and not as much just blending characters with backgrounds, I guess I would say. Most of these are traditional still. The middle one I had as a traditional piece, and then I retrofitted it to digital, just to see what that would kind of look like and how that would feel. I think there was a lot more intent in the forms that I was creating at this point. And then everything really tightened up in 2018, 2019, and I branded a few parties. The other party was a GDC party that was put on by Game Jolt and Devolver. I started doing really detailed cityscapes, a little bit more of a psychedelic Where's Waldo vibe. I think that I was far more confident in my digital mediums, so I was kind of pushing the boundaries and seeing where I'd want to take that next. Some more recent work. As I said, I don't do this for money anymore. This is kind of fast forward. Obviously, I've done far more work in the past 5 years than this, but a little bit more game jams, a few more game jams, some sticker art, and animation mixed with illustration. Just kind of seeing what that would feel like, how I can tackle character development in just a single image. Yeah, it feels like I've allowed myself to loosen up a little bit more and kind of lean into my hobbies. So I've also been doing, like, as I said, sticker art, street art, and then I've been getting really into Magic the Gathering again. So I've been making some cards for that. You can see that I made a silly joke one with my skeleton character. So in retrospect, looking back at all of that holistically, I guess, like, coming out of college, I was scared. I didn't like my work when I graduated. I hadn't found art forms and mediums that I was confident in, which kind of made me avoid backgrounds and perspective. My lack of confidence with the basics made me use tools that everyone else used. I didn't really experiment with mediums, and I avoided challenges because I didn't want my clients to not like the work that I did, because I obviously wanted to get paid. And therefore, I couldn't really improve because I wasn't challenging myself, and I was always looking for clients. So over the course of those 10 years or 8 years of professional work, I kind of say 8 to 10 because I became fully employed in 2018, and then I kept doing the work a little bit more. So anyway, I found tools that worked with me and that I really appreciated as an artist. And when I didn't like a medium, I switched. The most growth that I did have as an artist is when I was confident. So, when I was confident, I would pick something that I was confident with and then really nail that and work on something in tandem that I wasn't as confident in, and that kind of brought me up in all aspects. Overall, I'm sure you as artists have heard time and time again, when you thumbnail, your final piece will become stronger. So everything does really fall into picture when you start with a good foundation. So I'm going to take a pause there. If anybody has any questions about that, all the art journey that I went on and am still going on, obviously, feel free to put it in the chat and I can get to it when we open it up for questions and conversation. But I'm going to shift gears a little bit and talk just briefly about why boundaries between art and business matter. So when I first graduated, I was freelance because I couldn't find a job that was full-time. So that kind of dove me right in to this journey of having a relationship with my art that was personal. Obviously, everyone's relationship with their art is deeply personal and important. But as a freelancer and a contractor, you kind of have to look at it from a business mind as well. So why it's important: art is learning, art is self-discovery, art is therapy. Your artistic journey can forge confidence, it can breed self-doubt. Being confident in your own work is such a struggle when you take a step back, but also daily. It's just such a challenge. So obviously showing up and just doing it is kind of the hardest part in my experience. So looking at art as therapy, I feel like, and self-discovery, it's the farthest thing that you can get away from business. And yet when you're trying to make art for money, it becomes this really convoluted, perfect storm. So I'll get into that in a minute. But if you're going into freelance or contracting, definitely I encourage you to take classes and or just research what goes into running a small business, because you are everything. You are your own marketer, you are your own bookkeeper, you are your own business person, business development, and obviously you still have to do the art between all of that. So at the base level, make sure you're protected with contracts, making it very, very clear how many revisions you have and everything. I'm not a lawyer, but it is important to just get things in writing. So don't worry about over communicating, because that's the devil's in the details, and it will come back to get you if you don't cover that when you front load that in your business contracts. Social media, I don't know if I even want to talk about it. Social media is a beast. It is important though, whatever platform. It is marketing. You're doing marketing at that point on social media. I guess the only other note there for me is edits to your work is not a comment on your self-worth or artistic vision. It's a budget constraint and a client timeline. So business is business. I guess the only other thing that I would say about this is mixing and convoluting the two concepts of art as self-expression and a journey, and healing, and then the other side of business. It can be unhealthy, but it's absolutely 100% unavoidable. So that's kind of why it's important to put partitions between the two things. It's just self-expression has been monetized under capitalism, which inherently can take away some of the joy that it can provide. So I would say putting monetary gain over artistic self-discovery can lead away from experimentation, risk-taking, and artistic growth. But in an ideal world, it can also foster it. So be open, be bold, be brave. Wow. It was actually exactly 20 minutes. So I hope that this retrospective can help you in your artistic journey. Here's all my contact info.